What was your, well, somebody had to do it, moment? In elementary school, my class went on a trip to a campground/nature reserve thing. They took us on a tour and stopped around various plants to inform us about them. When talking about one of the plants, they told us that they didn't know whether or not they were poisonous. I ate some. It had no discernible effect on me. I got sent home. I did it for science. New Year's Eve, when I was around 14 years old at a friend's house with no parental supervision, the older brother pulled out a quarter stick of dynamite to light off at midnight. It was a cold Michigan winter, and so the smart thing to do was to open the door wall, light the stick, and throw it from inside the house. Well, he dropped it. Lit. On the floor. After we stared at each other for what seemed like an eternity, my soccer skills rushed in and I kicked it out the door. It went about 10 feet and then exploded. Could have lost a leg, but, well, somebody had to do it. Leaving first from friends' houses. That moment when everyone is huddled at the front door, pointless conversation, hand on the doorknob. I'll be 10 feet down the drive clicking my doors open. I used to work for a college. My route to work took me through the college library. While walking through, I happened to glance down the stacks. That's what library folk call the rows of bookshelves, and I see a girl having a seizure. I yell for help, drop my books and my jacket, and go run to her. I see she is about to bite her tongue, so I jam a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird between her teeth to stop that from happening. I talk to her, letting her know that someone is there for her, and I asked her if she knew I was there, if she could see and hear. I told her to blink if she could understand me. Thank God, she blinked enough to signal yes. I've never seen anyone blink that much. She had genuine relief in her eyes to see me. The campus nurse finally started to arrive after I had taken the book out of her mouth, and the spasms were calming down. She could move independently, and she was shaking from shock at what happened. The nurse started asking her questions, and she said something I thought was odd. She said it had happened once or twice before, and she had been having headaches for the last few years, always in the same place. The nurse asked her if they wanted to call an ambulance for her, and she said no, that her parents' insurance wouldn't cover it. I jumped back into the conversation and said that I would happily drive her to the emergency room. She just looked at me for a few seconds and nodded. In the car, I talked to her for a little while, telling her it would be okay, all that stuff. We also introduced each other. She had the same name as a Disney princess. The campus nurse had since called her mother, and she got to the hospital shortly after we had gotten to the emergency room. Well, this woman lit into her daughter immediately, saying things like, "Oh, it's just your headaches again, you're such a drama queen," and, "Why can't you just suck it up?" Not listening to a damned word her daughter said. She just stood there, looking at her shoes sadly. I didn't even really think. I grabbed the mother by the shoulder and wrenched her around to look me in the eyes. "Ma'am, with all due respect, you're dead wrong. I have seen people have seizures before. I have someone in my family with similar issues. Your daughter was having a full-blown episode. I had to jam a book in her teeth to keep her from biting her tongue. There is something seriously wrong with her, and if you even pretend to love her, you will get her looked at today." Then I turned around and walked out. It wasn't until 2 weeks later that I found out the last part. I was at my desk at the college, and the same girl comes walking in through the door, wearing a bandana on her head. She told me that after I left, her mother had the docs give her a CT scan of her head. She had a fluid pocket buildup, and she said they told her she would not have lived out the week if they hadn't caught it that day. The 2 weeks I hadn't heard anything was her recovery from the surgery they performed that day. She told me I saved her life with tears in her eyes, and to this day I have never seen eyes so full of gratitude. Chose to make the phone call to my roommate's dad to tell him he died, rather than having the police tell him. I still feel horrible about it, because I told him. Greg had a medical emergency. His dad had to ask me, "Did he die?" because I couldn't bring myself to say so. Had a similar thing. My friend's dad had died of a heart attack and no one had been able to get a hold of him to break the news. After several hours, my phone was the only one to get through. I was too much of a coward to tell him what happened and just said, "You need to drop everything and go home. Right now. You just need to go home." We had this strange rule growing up where we weren't allowed to take shits in my parents' bathroom, so I tried to time my shits for when they weren't home. Nobody tells me where I can and can't shit. Nobody. I just imagine you squatting on the table at dinner, intensely looking everyone in the eye, and pushing one out as you whisper, "Nobody!" Reported my boss for harassment, bullying, and blackmail, and being generally incompetent. Nobody else wanted to, so I thought, fuck it, my turn, bitch, and proceeded to make her life a misery. I accidentally signed up for a workshop on how to work with people who had cognitive impairments. Not many people sign up for these workshops, and the instructors said they had an immediate need for another teacher at a school for young adults with severe cognitive impairments. I was the only one in the room with a teaching certificate, and I was only waiting tables at the time, so I volunteered. I ended up working at that school for a year before they found a permanent teacher. I learned so much about humanity in that classroom. I wrote a suicide note for my sister. Her suicidal thoughts weren't being taken seriously by medical professionals, and she needed proper care. That sucked. Fighting 3 guys at once to defend a very small pacifist. I got my ass handed to me, but I kicked the shit out of one dude's testicles, because fuck rules, that's why. And fuck bullies would do again. Rule number 1. Never kick a man in the nuts. Rule number 2. Ignore rule number 1 if outnumbered or defending someone. There is only one rule in a fight: win. At a kid's party, I was the only adult not drinking and having a good time, because there was a fucking pool with no fence around it. I stood there watching it like a hawk while trying to act like I wasn't judging everyone. Everyone was surprised when I fished a 4-year-old out of the water. They all just stood there while I hopped in to get her. My sister has a pool, and every time they have a party where there will be kids, they hire a lifeguard to watch the pool so that no one has to feel like they are carrying that burden. In the 5 or so parties I've been to with that lifeguard there, she has never had to even touch the water, but the kids' parents are always super appreciative that she is there. Older woman, I would guess in her 70s, came into the movie theater I work at, and in the middle of the movie she went into the restroom, shit her pants, took them off, walked out into the lobby wearing no pants, with shit streaming down her legs leaving a trail. Guess which minimum wage worker had to clean it up? Oh man. I'm sorry, man. I almost walked out, but they give free movie tickets to employees and I just couldn't lose that. I was walking with a friend and came across a snake with its head smashed in, but it was still alive, slithering in sad little circles. I begged my friend to put it out of its misery. I love snakes, and had never killed anything before that point, but he was too queasy about it. I had to stomp the thing to death, and I cried the whole time. I had to do that with a bird my dog fucked up but didn't kill. I had to stand on its head. I was 12. Not fun when you're just a kid. Told friend of mine that he was being cheated on by his girlfriend. A lot of people knew, and I hesitated to do it because she was friends with my girlfriend at the time. But I remember a guy I knew that did the same thing for me when an ex was cheating on me while she was at college, and I thought it was the right thing to do because I definitely appreciated it. It made things a bit awkward for a bit, but I don't regret it at all. I was on a road trip with 2 friends and we stopped in Pittsburgh for the night at Holiday Inn or some sort of similar chain. We've been driving all day from the greater Chicago area, only stopping at shady, filthy rest stops at P, and eating junk food in the car for meals. So we check into this place, which was nice for the price we paid, and we're chilling out watching TV when at about 11 p.m. all those spicy Cheetos catch up with me. So I head to the bathroom to do my thing. At this point I should note that all 3 of us are splitting this hotel room, one in one bed, one in another, and one on the fold-out couch. There is only one bathroom. So I go in and I know it's gonna be bad. I turn the exhaust fan on, I crack the itty-bitty window, and I let it loose. I'm telling you, this was a shit for the ages. It wouldn't stop. I swear there was a 1.5-foot log coiled in that bowl with about 4 bags of Cheetos, 4 Butterfingers, and a 6-pack of Mountain Dew sitting on top of that. The pile is out of the water. After I'm finished sacrificing my sphincter to the porcelain god, I'm standing there looking at this mountain of crap and I know it's not going anywhere. But what can I do? So I flush, and what happens? Exactly what you'd expect. As I'm watching the water level go up and up, I rip the back of the toilet and grab the float and stop all water flow. Well, shit. What do? No plunger, no one at the front desk, and there's no way 3 20-year-old guys can have a toilet for 12 hours. So I grabbed the thin plastic garbage bag out of the can, put it on like a glove, and shoved that turd down. So I'm up to my elbow in my own filth, yelling at my friends to find a plunger, and they're laughing hysterically at me and my improvised poo plunger, so no help there. Finally, I get the toilet to flush and I take the bag off my arm and turn it inside out, tie it in a knot, and throw it back in the can. In the morning, I left a big tip on the dresser, and we took off. Bonus: I forgot my wallet, so I had to go back to the scene of the crime and face the staff in all my shame. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.